Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Holy shit, there's a lot of you. My name is David Beresford. I am a strategist at Contagious, and it is my privilege and pleasure to give you guys a bit of a scene setter on the sprawling subject that is AI. And in the next 12 to 15 minutes, I hope to excite and disturb you in equal measure. And with that latter goal in mind, I'd like to kick off by posing a question to you. And that is, have you ever thought about what the last 4 presidents of the United States would look like had they rocked a mullet hairstyle? No? I have. So have some other people on the internet, because now we've got Biden, Trump, Obama, and Bush, who looks like he's a sort of extra in the A-Team. So all of this was conjured pretty much instantaneously by a new breed of artificial intelligence. It's a brave new world, folks, but how on earth did we get here? Well, the rise of the machines did not happen overnight. In fact, AI traces its roots all the way back to the 1940s, Bletchley Park, and the legendary mathematician and computer scientist Alan Turing, and his work in breaking the Enigma codes. Since then, in the intervening decades, it's sort of been in the wilderness, apart from occasional fleeting famous moments, such as in 1997. Some of you in the audience might remember chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov famously losing a game of chess against IBM's Deep Blue. But what's reignited and sort of reinvigorated interest in the last number of years in the field of AI is the shift from what is known as analytical AI to what is called generative AI. Now, for the purposes of clarity, and this is a gross simplification, but analytical AI is broadly machines that can look at large swathes of data and find the pattern in it. So this is things that you'll be familiar with. We've had it for some years now. Things like predicting when your Uber Eats delivery is going to arrive, or indeed predicting which video TikTok will show you next. Generative AI, on the other hand, goes above and beyond this rote cognitive labor to a place where the machines are actively capable of creating something new. And many in the field, many experts in the field, far more intelligent and superior to myself, believe that we are now on the brink, because of the multitude of technological developments that have happened in the last few years, on the brink of what they call in ecology and geology circles a Cambrian explosion. For those of you who swerved science class, Cambrian explosion refers to a moment approximately 538 million years ago when the developmental conditions on this planet were such that life exploded and started to begin accelerating exponentially. And as I say, some of the brightest minds now believe that we are on the brink, if not in the midst of, a Cambrian explosion in the field of AI. You have the likes of this little-known figure here saying that entire industries will reorient around it. So, there are 4 main ways that the generative AI is sort of manifesting. I'm going to touch on each of them briefly with you. The first is generative text. And as you can see from this timeline here, pre-2020, we already were sort of familiar with this. You probably interacted with a bot. It was an interesting experience, but nothing groundbreaking. Some language translation. And then, 2020, 2021, we got into basic copywriting. It was pretty good. And then last year, with the likes of GPT-3, and then a little thing called ChatGPT dropping in November 2022, things started to get eerily good. You were getting original poems and prose off the back of a simple text prompt, including things like this, because as soon as you democratize these tools and make them easy to use for people, you start to get very silly requests. So this is the sort of creative level we're dealing with in terms of the prompt, and AI does a pretty decent job at responding. I particularly love, and the Lord said, "Verily I say unto thee, seek not to put thy peanut butter sandwiches in thy VCR, for it is not a suitable place for such things." And they say AI cannot do comedy. I beg to differ. It is on the way there. So These sort of creative exploits were screen grabbed, just like I showed you there, and they were proliferated all over the net, shared. And this is why this tool ended up posting some serious numbers. So you got 1 million users in 5 days, 1 billion visits in 3 months, has 3 times the adoption rate of TikTok, and somewhat mind-blowingly, 10 times that of Instagram. Now this is a little diagram that was doing the rounds some time ago online. You might have seen it. It shows the difference in the parameters between GPT-3, which is the early model that preceded ChatGPT, and GPT-4, which is the very latest model. This diagram has since been debunked by Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. As you can see here, it's imagining that GPT-3's parameters that it's trained on is 175 billion, whereas GPT-4, it claims here, is 100 trillion. It is actually closer to 1 trillion, but that is still a serious step up on the previous model, and you could imagine what that will mean for capabilities, and it's only going to get bigger and better. So that's text, and of course, the next thing, once you nail text, you also have the work stream that is coding. So the previously impenetrable craft of coding is increasingly being democratized and made more accessible to people. And this is done primarily through tools like GitHub's Copilot, which, as you can see here, basically a developer could give a verbal prompt to this machine, and it could integrate it in the coding language almost instantaneously. Many studies have been done into this, and the productivity rate for developers using this tool goes up by around 55% faster. So really incredible stuff in terms of how it's going to shake up that little sector. So text and code, but now I want to talk about the thing that's really sort of captured the imagination, and that is, of course, AI images. And it's because of images like this one here, to stick with our little biblical theme, which features Jesus Christ and his crew taking a selfie at the Last Supper. I particularly like the guy who's sort of main stage here. He looks like every creative director I've ever worked with. And also this disciple here, who appears a little worse for wear, despite the fact that I don't think they've even got onto the main course yet, so it's going to be a long day for him. But AI image generators are not just a one-trick pony. They're capable of doing all sorts of styles. So you've got sculptural, you've got claymation, you've got mural, you've got even in the style of certain artists. I believe this is an Annie Leibovitz portrait photography prompt, and also things like Picasso. It's got so good, it's got so eerily good, that even judges at the World Photography Awards, the Sony World Photography Awards, were fooled into awarding this particular photograph the top gong in the open category. The artist behind it subsequently refused the award because he said it was a stunt. But interesting that even those at the topper echelons of photography are being taken in by this. So that's text, code, images. And of course, when you've got these wonderful, stunning images, the next question is, can you also make them move? And the answer is yes, indeed. This is the sort of level we were at in back end of 2022. This is text prompt to 3D models and basic video. But then, just a couple of months ago, another iteration was dropped by a crowd called Runway, and this is text to video. Have a look at this.
Text to video with Gen 2. Now you can generate a video with nothing but words. No driving video, no input image. Gen 2 represents yet another major research milestone and another monumental step forward for generative AI. With Gen 2, anyone, anywhere can suddenly realize entire worlds, animations, stories, anything you can imagine.
So, pretty impressive. And I hope that when I used the sort of hyperbole of Cambrian explosion earlier, you're beginning to see that I wasn't really exaggerating that much. We're seeing generative AI, the tentacles of it, reaching into the various silos, sectors, and industries all over the world. And I want to talk about 6 particular use cases that I think are interesting, or 6 particular industries that I think will be shaken up by this. Some of you might have caught the news story that I think it was a few months ago, ChatGPT passed the medical licensing exam in the US. Pretty phenomenal. It's also been assessed as being excellent at predicting Alzheimer's in people. And also, you might have even seen a news story about its ability of this sort of tech to analyze things like eyeballs. So 80,000 pairs of eyeballs were given to a generative AI tool, and it was able to predict with 86% accuracy whether the eyeballs belonged to a female or a male. The reason that's interesting is because doctors didn't even know there was a difference. So AI is revealing all of these things to us that we didn't even previously know. Likewise, things like the dusty old profession of the law, we can expect this one to be shaken up. Things like contract analysis, compliance, litigation, all of these things will be increasingly outsourced to AI. And already we're seeing law firms adopting this tech in small, interesting, introductory ways. Pharmaceutical companies stand to be another beneficiary of this tech. You may have seen some of this before about how biotech labs are using diffusion models to dream up new proteins. It's all very complex science to me, but essentially what it means is that they can accelerate drug development to an unprecedented level. Journalism is unsurprisingly another area that will be almost certainly tackled by generative AI. We're already seeing certain outlets boost their editorial content with generative text. And also, the key thing, or the more interesting thing, I think is going to be in the field of photojournalism. We've already seen some interesting campaigns by various brands in this space. So this is something that I think will increasingly happen. Where journalists can't go, they will be able to imagine the scene and have a sort of generative AI image piece to go with their text. Another one is education. So if you cast your minds back to when you sat in history class, you might have been bored to tears, but it might have been a different story if you could have interacted directly with the towering figures of antiquity. Imagine yourself having a conversation with Socrates or Lenin or even Marilyn Monroe. That is all now possible. There are dedicated apps that do that. And as we heard in the introductory video, imagine a maths tutor with limited or limitless patience. I know I certainly could have done with one of those. I might actually understand the underlying tech of this stuff I'm talking about. And finally, the elephant in the room, ladies and gentlemen, which is marketing and advertising. We've already seen, a couple of months ago, there was a tie-up between a major global brand like Coca-Cola and one of the key players in the AI space, which is OpenAI, and the consultancy Bain & Company, who are going to help them implement and integrate this tech across their business. So you might be asking yourself, okay, so AI is clearly going to take over the world. Is it also going to take my job? And really, there is no easy answer to that question. But the consensus seems to be from the leading players in our industry is that it's not AI that will take your job. It's the other creative who knows how to use AI that will take your job. So ladies and gentlemen, with that in mind, I hope you're paying attention, I hope you're primed, and I hope you're ready. I've been David Beresford. If you like what you've seen today, check us out at contagious.com. Thank you so much for your attention.